Picture waking up to this reality. 7 billion gallons of water materializing, without warning, inside California's most vital reservoir. No rainfall. No upstream releases. Every standard explanation coming up empty. In this scenario, monitoring systems at Lake Oroville begin blaring alerts into the early morning darkness at 2:17 a.m. Within just 4 hours, water levels climb 23 feet beyond what any forecast or model deemed possible. The shoreline advances more than 60 feet inland, engulfing docks, drowning benches, and wiping away reference points that had existed for generations. What force beneath the earth could drive such a volume upward? Why did seismic instruments register tremors at the precise moment the surge began? And if the dam was designed solely to manage surface inflows, what happens when billions of gallons push upward through the lake bed itself? The technicians who first spot the anomaly initially suspect equipment failure. They review the primary sensors, then verify against backup systems. The readings are identical. Manual checks confirm the unthinkable. Water is entering the reservoir from somewhere below ground. And this would only mark the beginning. In this hypothetical event, the Eastern Basin would begin telling a story that contradicts every engineering manual. Crews arriving at first light would discover the intake tower brushing against ripples that should still be 20 feet below. Buoys would have drifted far inland. Concrete benches installed during the historic 2021 drought, when lake levels dropped to just 22% of capacity, would now be completely submerged. Investigators would systematically rule out every known cause. Radar would confirm clear skies across the entire Sierra Nevada watershed. Upstream reservoirs such as New Bullard's Bar and Antelope Lake would report stable, unchanged levels. Satellite imagery would show no landslides, debris flows, or visible displacement anywhere along the Feather River Basin. Surface hydrology would offer no explanation. The conclusion would become unavoidable. Something beneath the reservoir floor had opened access to a water source no engineer knew existed. The sheer volume implied a source of staggering scale, forcing its way upward through fractured bedrock. Every foundational principle of hydrology argues against this. All established models insist water flows downhill, not upward through solid earth. Yet geological research has documented rare cases where deeply pressurized aquifers can force water upward along fault systems, a phenomenon theoretically possible beneath any large reservoir. And in this scenario, the water continues to rise. Lake Oroville is no ordinary body of water. It is the most critical storage facility in California's State Water Project, holding up to 3.54 million acre-feet at full capacity, representing 61% of the entire system. More than 27 million Californians rely on its flows for drinking water, agriculture, and industry. The dam itself rises 770 feet, making it the tallest in the United States, standing 43 feet higher than Hoover Dam. Its hydroelectric facilities supply power to roughly 800,000 homes. During dry seasons, precisely managed releases travel hundreds of miles through the Sacramento-San Joaquin Delta, sustaining farms throughout the Central Valley and cities across Southern California. A failure here would ripple across the state's entire water infrastructure within days. That is why unexplained behavior at Oroville triggers immediate statewide alarm. What follows would shock even seasoned scientists. Every resident along the Feather River corridor carries a shared trauma rooted in documented history. On February 7, 2017, operators discovered a massive crater forming in Oroville's main spillway during routine flood releases. As storms continued and inflows exceeded 250,000 cubic feet per second, water spilled over the emergency spillway for the first time in the dam's 49-year history. The hillside beneath that spillway eroded far faster than anticipated. Headward erosion threatened the stability of the concrete weir itself. Officials warned that failure could unleash a 30-foot wall of water onto downstream communities. On February 12, 2017, nearly 188,000 residents in Butte, Yuba, and Sutter counties were evacuated in the largest dam evacuation in U.S. history. Repairs ultimately exceeded $1 billion. Independent forensic investigations later concluded the disaster stemmed from decades-long failures to identify design vulnerabilities and deteriorating conditions. Less than a decade later, sirens would again carry traumatic weight. For survivors, alarm tones are not background noise, they are memory triggers. Communities that once watched the nation's tallest dam nearly fail never fully regain trust. That fracture never healed. Signs would already be emerging. In such a crisis, the California Department of Water Resources would activate emergency protocols, collecting chain-of-custody water samples from multiple depths. Independent laboratories would analyze the chemistry for anomalies. Decades of geochemical research show that water originating from deep crustal sources carries distinct signatures. Elevated lithium and boron concentrations are well-documented indicators of geothermal systems and deep formation waters. Peer-reviewed studies in journals such as Geochemistry, Geophysics, Geosystems demonstrate that rare earth element ratios can reveal water that has migrated through hot, pressurized rock for thousands of years. Oxygen isotope analysis, standard for tracing water origin, could determine whether the signature matches Sierra Nevada precipitation or something far older. Minerals formed under sustained heat and pressure would further indicate deep origins. If such markers appeared at Oroville, it would mean the water had not recently fallen from the sky. It had risen from far below. But the ground might conceal yet another warning. In a scenario like this, seismologists reviewing continuous monitoring data could notice something initially dismissed as coincidence: a swarm of micro-earthquakes beneath the basin. Tremors too small to feel. Magnitudes ranging from 0.8 to 1.4, yet impossible to ignore due to their timing. Geological surveys have long mapped fault systems beneath the Oroville region. Research into fault-controlled fluid migration shows that under sufficient pressure differences, even microscopic fracture widening can permit massive fluid movement. Global studies of deep aquifers demonstrate that fractures expanding by many millimeters can transmit thousands of cubic feet per second when connected to pressurized reservoirs. A clear correlation between tremor timing and water arrival would suggest conduits opening, pathways forming, and something deep underground forcing its way upward. Engineers would confront a threat more terrifying than earthquakes or floods: internal erosion, known as piping. This occurs when water infiltrates an earthfill dam and begins carrying soil particles away. The process starts invisibly. Microscopic channels develop. Each particle removed widens the pathway, accelerating the flow until catastrophic failure becomes inevitable. According to the International Commission on Large Dams, internal erosion accounts for roughly half of all embankment dam failures worldwide. The Association of State Dam Safety Officials warns piping is especially dangerous because external signs may be minimal or absent until mere hours before collapse. The Teton Dam disaster in Idaho illustrates this nightmare. On June 5, 1976, workers noticed muddy seepage at 7:30 a.m. By 11:55 a.m., the dam had completely failed, releasing roughly 80 billion gallons of water and killing 11 people. The 305-foot structure was filling for the first time when permeable foundation materials and fractured rhyolite allowed water to migrate, eroding soil until collapse was unavoidable. Oroville, also an earthfill dam built on complex Sierra Nevada geology, shares troubling similarities. Any unexplained surge would immediately raise alarms. In such a scenario, warning signs could multiply. Downstream drainage discharge might appear unusually cloudy, indicating sediment transport outside normal conditions. Pressure sensors embedded within the dam could record values beyond historical norms. Based on lessons from 2017, certain readings might echo patterns observed in the months leading up to that near disaster, history insisting these signals demand immediate action. Now consider someone living on the front line. A longtime resident along Pine Ridge Road overlooking the eastern shore. Someone who remembers the fear of 2017, midnight phone calls, endless headlights streaming south on Highway 70, a vow never to be unprepared again. On the morning after such a surge, they would walk to their usual overlook and stop cold. The shoreline would have shifted. Familiar markers used for decades to gauge lake levels would be underwater. Trees that once stood 20 feet from the waterline would now feel waves against their trunks. They would not wait for evacuation orders. Within hours, bags would be packed, documents secured, vehicles loaded. They would leave voluntarily, choosing certainty over official hesitation. "I watched the spillway nearly destroy this town once," they might say quietly. "I won't watch it again from a rooftop." Across the region, others would reach similar conclusions. Submerged docks and mudslide-covered roads could isolate entire neighborhoods. Escape routes people depend on might vanish beneath rising water. Environmental scientists would warn of cascading ecological consequences. Rapid water level changes increase turbidity, which studies show can smother salmon spawning beds. The Feather River Fish Hatchery, supporting fisheries responsible for roughly 20% of Pacific commercial and sport catches, would face serious disruption. Sediment disturbance could resuspend heavy metals settled over decades, contaminating the food web. The situation could unravel faster than response teams could react. As night falls in this scenario, the lake behaves unnervingly. Despite calm winds, whitecaps ripple across the surface. Additional rise is recorded between sunset and midnight. The water churns in swirling patterns, suggesting turbulence far below, as though something continues feeding the surge from beneath. Then the dam begins to sing. Technicians monitoring acoustic sensors detect high-frequency emissions emanating from within the structure. Engineering research confirms that stressed materials emit acoustic signals, rhythmic pulses produced as structures adjust under changing loads. Such emissions could indicate forces acting on the dam beyond anything its designers anticipated. Oroville Dam was engineered exclusively for surface inflows. Every calculation, safety margin, and stress analysis assumed water would enter only through the Feather River and its tributaries. There is no precedent in dam engineering literature for massive bottom-fed injection from deep aquifers. No historical case explains how an earthfill embankment responds when pressure builds simultaneously from above and below. Engineering manuals offer no guidance. The dam would be operating outside its design envelope. Every safety factor assumed a world where water obeys predictable rules. Analyzing emergency data would take weeks. Meanwhile, lake levels would continue climbing. Engineers would race against physics, struggling to understand a phenomenon textbooks declared impossible. Independent consultants would deploy hydroacoustic imaging and install additional pressure transducers throughout the structure, attempting to distinguish between external seepage entering through natural fractures and internal piping weakening the dam from within. But science moves slowly. Water does not. The central question would remain unanswered. Would this be a geological gift, an unexpected infusion from ancient aquifers offering relief from chronic drought? Or would it be the harbinger of catastrophe, signaling destabilization beneath the state's most critical dam? In the absence of answers, speculation would surge. Some might propose hidden subsurface cavities collapsing under immense pressure. Others would point to volcanic conduit theories, with magma acting as a piston forcing groundwater upward. Still others would whisper about drilling accidents or construction anomalies long buried. The truth might remain unknown, perhaps unknowable in time to act. What scientists do know is grounded in decades of research. Deep aquifer systems permeate California's geology. Chemical signatures can conclusively identify water that has spent millennia underground. Microquakes along fault systems can open fluid pathways. Internal pressure changes produce measurable stress responses. Acoustic emissions reveal when embankments are under strain. What remains unknown is almost everything else. Where exactly would the water be entering? How long would the flow persist? How vast would the underground source be? What happens if pressure continues to build beneath the dam? The limits of current subsurface imaging mean these questions might not be answered until the crisis resolves, one way or another. Humanity has long believed concrete and engineering could tame nature. We have erected monuments to that belief across rivers, fault lines, and restless landscapes worldwide. For decades, they have held. But beneath reservoirs like Oroville lie forces older than civilization itself. Water that fell as rain before humans existed still moves through deep rock, following pathways we have never fully mapped, capable of emerging where we least expect. The dam rises 770 feet. Below it, 27 million people depend on its flows. Above it, a lake holds water we assume we understand. This scenario poses a question for every major dam on Earth. Would anyone recognize the final warning before it was too late?